All right. So here we begin our young scholar session. I'm really excited about this. It was a little brainwave we had. We just thought, you know, what if all of us older people, right, are just so boring? No one will want to talk to us or listen to us. And so I thought, at least if we have some young, wonderful-looking young men and or women, we could possibly get people to come to our conference, and they did come. So here we are. I want to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Luca Castronova. We don't have a photo for him. I was looking for one online, and I couldn't remember Luca's last name, and so I had put in the original version of the program, Luca Castronova, and I kept looking up Castronova, and I thought, he's a race car driver. I thought, he's a tiny bit older than the young man is supposed to be. Anyway, Mr. Luca Castronova is a current student at Wyoming Catholic College, a former student of chemistry and mathematics, and a former pagan who now aspires to live as Catholics should. That is, in community founded in the pursuit of God with whole heart, mind, and body. As such, he enjoys speaking Latin, arguing about Plato, singing polyphony, stomping around the Wind River Range, and resigning himself to ignorance of the finer details of the Gregorian chant rubrics. Wonderful. He's not done anything exceptionally noteworthy, but he might someday. I'm betting that it's going to happen right now. So here we go, Luca. Let's welcome Luca Castronova. His talk is called Physics After God, the Quest for Certainty in a Causeless World.
We live in a fractured world, and in few places is this felt more poignantly than the modern university. The subjects are lauded for their purity, staying absolute from other fields of study, while interdisciplinarian pursuits are scorned. Ask a philosophical question at a chemistry lecture, and at best, you'll be ignored, at worst, ridiculed. This is an approach to study incompatible with the tenets of the Catholic faith. Just as all being is founded in God, so too should all study be founded in study of Him. In short, that theology, queen of the sciences, really should rule. As such, I would like to argue today for her authority over just one discipline, natural science, and demonstrate that, founded in an incorrect theology, natural science will not be able to satisfy our desire for true knowledge of the natural world. To this end, let's start by looking at one part of our creed, in fact, the beginning. I believe in one God, the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, of all things visible and invisible. We hold God to be the first cause of everything that exists in any sense of the word, and in doing so, hold Him as the source of all truth. He is the explanation, so to speak, for all that we see, and in knowing Him, we would understand everything. As such, He is a solution to an epistemological conundrum. Given that we desire to know, where should we look for knowledge? What, ultimately, will satisfy us? This question needs an answer, and thus it rears its ugly head at those who deny God, or at the very least, deny an immaterial, absolute first cause of all being. These postmoderns, rascally rapscallions as they are known to be, are thus forced to search for their certainty elsewhere. In doing so, they conclude one of three things. Either truth resides solely in the intellect, or in the material, or in the joining of the two. The knowledge of which natural science is productive needs be interpreted in light of these positions. After all, what is knowledge but a claim that you have found the truth? Let us, then, take these stances for a spin, walk a mile in the postmodern calciments, and see where we end up. But first, some Aristotle. When we observe something, there are always two terms involved, the observer and the thing observed. Since we are discussing natural science, the study of things with material natures, we can divide each of our terms, the observer and the thing observed, again, according to the Aristotelian view of form and matter. The object of our study is composed of its matter and its essence, and likewise, we as observer possess both a material body and an immaterial intellect. The event from which knowledge arises always involves both a joining of the corresponding material terms, I see the plant, I feel the rock, and of the formal terms, I grasp what a plant is, what a rock is. To this scheme, we can now pose our question: from where does the truth arise? The first of our postmoderns, he who holds that truth is to be found in the intellect, looks at the four terms propounded and concludes that, of the two unions, the formal one alone is productive of knowledge proper, and the material union is incidental to the process. This view is bodied forth most clearly in the transvestite, believing that his intellectual apprehension of himself is true, regardless of the material state of affairs, so to speak. So too with all other radical subjectivists, Sartre and Descartes, in a certain sense, belonging in the same camp as Judith Butler and those who read feminism into Shakespeare. However ridiculous this may sound, as an epistemological position, it is even more so. If our intellect in action is the sole source of truth, we all have, in a sense, the truth in our minds regardless of what we believe. Insofar, however, as the truth is an explanation of material reality, these subjectivists desire to conform matter to their intellect. Desiring that his conception and no one else's be used to explain the world, the subjectivist sees power as good above all else. He has become Thrasymachus, Callicles, the prince. His thirst for certainty has become lust for power, and longing to be God is left perpetually frustrated. The other postmodern, he who believes that truth is to be found in matter, doesn't fare much better. Converse to the subjectivist, he holds reality to be material primarily, and that anything seeming otherwise can ultimately be explained through its material cause. Knowledge to him is one of these things. The union of the observer's matter and the observed's matter is whence the truth of the matter is derived, and the change in the observer's intellect, should it exist at all, is caused entirely by the material reality of the event. This is the stance of most every modern scientist, who seeks to explain everything with material causality. How does a sheep work? Look at its organs. How do they work? Look at their cells. And so on until you're discussing atoms, electrons, and quarks. They hunt for a God particle in the truest sense of the phrase, some material first principle with which, if understood, we would be able to determine everything that ever has or ever will occur. Disregarding entirely whether this search is in vain, it is nevertheless the case that we will never be able to attain certainty in knowledge under this worldview. By restricting reality to matter, the objectivist restricts his mode of discovery to matter as well. However, all material modes of knowing, the five senses that is, are by their very nature subjective and therefore unable to produce complete certainty. Sense knowledge always consists of the union of a material organ with a material thing, yet, since the organ is mutable on account of its matter, changes in observation cannot be attributed to the thing observed with certitude. If two colors appear identical to me, how can I be certain they are in fact identical when I very well could be colorblind? Any possible test of colorblindness can be subjected to a similar inquiry, and although they can provide more certainty, they can never provide absolute certainty. As Charles de Connick puts it, when the colors come knocking on the ends of my nerves, I cannot put my head out the window to see what is knocking. What then of him who believes that truth arises from the unity of the intellect with material reality through the body? Is too this man doomed to hunger and thirst for true knowledge in vain? By no means. Though he may not yet know it, this man's view has room for God, while the other two put mind and matter in his place, respectively. It is to this man that Aristotle's proof for a first mover is addressed, as is St. Thomas's proof for God, and all of the scholastic theology built upon its back. Since nothing he observes possesses on its own the entirety of the truth, he concludes that something by these arguments must, something outside, beyond, and above him. To put truth in the union of mind and reality is to put truth outside you in a way that you can attain, and ultimately, to put truth in God. All this being said, I pray that now the terrain of the sciences has become a little clearer by tracing the oft-forgotten link between two of its titans. I would like to close with a poem, the vision of which testifies to this very same disciplinary integrity. It's Tennyson's Flower in the Crannied Wall, a poem that I enjoy very much. Flower in the crannied wall, I pluck you out of the crannies. I hold you here, root and all, in my hand. Little flower, but if I could understand what you are, root and all and all, I should know what God and man is. Thank you.